Amrita Parivar through the Bhagavad Gita. So far, we've had 6 sessions. The previous session, we heard about the Karma Sannyasa Yoga, when Arjuna asked, which of these is important? Is karma important? Is that the right way? Or is sannyasa the right way to basically go forward? Krishna beautifully guided through the Gita. He's told that, you know, our karmic history and the current dharmic awareness, the past karmic history, the present dharmic awareness, is what actually helps us work properly with the right attitude, which is your karma yoga. And Krishna says that, you know, though it is through karma that we can reach the state of sannyasa, right? It is easier that way rather than trying to completely concentrate on sannyasa and going to the path of jnana yoga, which is a very, very difficult path, probably achieved by very few. One of the best ways to achieve it, as told by Krishna, is through performing the karma with the right attitude, making it karma yoga. Dedicating all our actions to the Almighty, and also accepting whatever comes our way as a prasada buddhi. As Amma said, such karma which is performed in such an attitude is recorded with the records of the universe, right? And that acts towards taking us towards the moksha, which is the end goal for all of us. And we also saw how Amma was telling us that, you know, we can teach these values to the children by teaching them to perform actions through the right attitude, by encouraging them to always do good, to think good, to do work in the true spirit of the karma yoga. And that will lead them to be an Amrutaputra. And another beautiful message that was conveyed to us was about the Abhinna Chakshu. That is, we should look at the world as an extension of our own self. That is, there is a single Atma pervading all through. And then we all become a Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, right? We are all united in that sense. So these were all the key points that we have discussed in the last session. Without taking too much time, Amma, I request you to please lead us into today's session. Dhanyavad.
Brahmacharya Vrati Dandi Sarva Vedanta Pandita Srimad Viveka Yogi Mam Prachodayadu Sarvada Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. A very good evening to all of you. Thank you all for so attentively listening and trying to pick up some pearls of wisdom from Bhagavan's Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, they say, can be divided into 3, that Tattvamasi. So in the first 6 chapters are Tvam, and the next 6 chapters are Tat, and last 6 chapters are the Asi, combining both. So we are coming to the last chapter in the first section, all concerning ourselves, how we should approach the Almighty. So thank you, Smita, for nicely summing up the previous talk. Today, we are entering into a new channel. The title of the chapter is Dhyana Yoga. So Dhyana itself leads to a very important thought, because Dhyana, only I can do my Dhyana. I cannot do your Dhyana. You cannot do my Dhyana. Arjuna cannot do Krishna's dhyana, Krishna cannot do Arjuna's dhyana. So, dhyana yoga itself conveys a very important idea that this chapter is concerned with your own self, your surrender, your work, your thinking, your yoga, etc., etc. Self-work. So, we have heard that when Vyasa Bhagavan was asking Ganapati to dictate he dictated, and Ganapati Bhagavan was taking down the dictation. Ganapati put a condition that there should not be any break at all. So Vyasa said, okay, now I'll put my condition. You should not write down a sloka without knowing the meaning fully. So Ganapati said, okay. And in between, Vyasa Bhagavan will come out with a difficult stanza. Ganapati will take a few minutes to ponder over its meaning before writing it down. So that gave some breathing time for Vyasa Bhagavan. So sometimes I feel the very first stanza in this chapter must have been one of those which Vyasa Bhagavan used to make Ganapati ponder for a while. Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sannyasi cha yogi cha naniragnirna cha kriyaha. All right, we'll go into it. The first sloka is such a sloka. It is very simple, but takes time to fully understand. Here Krishna says, whoever is performing kartavya karma without any thought of reward for himself, he is a yogi, he is a sannyasi. We can imagine the confusion in Arjuna's mind as his understanding so far of karma, yoga, sannyasa become topsy-turvy. So also our minds also. Which is important now? He says, yogi is a sannyasi. So this whole chapter now, Sri Krishna will explain beautifully the interlinkage. So according to Krishna, a mind totally devoid of desire for the fruit of action is not different from that of a yogi or a sannyasi. So we can remember Patanjali's sutra here, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodhaha. A mind totally bereft of desire, blazing with the fire of renunciation, is indeed a yogi mind. And it is also a sannyasi mind. And they are interlinked through the ideal of Tyaga. That puts a new light on our understanding. Tyaga is the key for self-development. So I told you earlier, this chapter is a chapter on self-development. All our sankalpas of enrolling in yoga institutes, getting a certificate, becoming a yoga teacher, and having so many students, or getting into a mutt and getting a gerua cloth and going about like a sannyasi, all that is shattered. Because, what is he saying? All these have to be interlinked with great blazing fire of renunciation, and a yogi has to be a sannyasi. A sannyasi is a yogi as well. So Arjuna starts wondering, where are we going to? So it is at this time we are getting on to the sixth step, and we start wondering, now what? Now what is Krishna going to give us? And as we start wondering, just imagine, it is on my imagination to make it interesting. So as we start on the sixth step, suddenly a door opens and we get in. Then there is a big board kept there. And that on that board is written, this is a training center for attaining perfect personality development, which will change one's appearance, attitude, proficiency, efficiency, and so on. Hi, wonderful. then we can immediately, we can become a yogi or tyagi or anything. People are rushing in, huh? Especially when they read the last word. Everything is free, no fee, caste, creed, etc. No problem at all. So people start rushing in, and they enter the hall thinking there will be a receptionist where they can register their names or pay their, meet the manager, the trainer, and so on. So as they start moving around in the hall, they find there's a huge mirror in front. And they start looking into the mirror, they see themselves. And then on the mirror comes a message. What is the message? Uddhared atmanatmanam, natmanam avasadayed, atmeva hyatmano bandhu, atmeva ripuratmanah. Elevate yourself through the power of your own mind and not degrade yourself, for the mind can be a friend and also the enemy of the self. So people start looking at each other. Krishna had been telling us he is with us, he will guide us and everything. And now suddenly what? See what he has done. You know, when you go to learn swimming, the swimming master will go on helping us to float, to swim and all that. And we are always under the impression, we are confident that he is with us all the time. And suddenly we find he's not there. We are put into the water, thrown into the water. And we have to see that we don't drown ourselves. So that is the situation here. All the while Krishna had been telling, consoling us, everything. And suddenly he said, now it is up to you. You have to make yourself, you have to find your own ways. So when the emphasis is shifted to one's own effort, many of those who crowded into the hall, they take a U-turn, they get out. Oh, self-development. It is very easy to transform others, but self-development is indeed a very difficult thing. No, not now. Maybe after retirement, or maybe in the next birth. This birth, let me enjoy. Maybe self-development I can attend to in my next birth. So that is how we all approach this very important aspect of self-development. When I was going through this thought, suddenly a very beautiful incident from the life of Swamiji Vivekananda came to my mind. You know, when Swamiji was a young child, one day his mother called him and said, Naren, you go and ask father what he is going to give you. Because mother was a little afraid. He earns a lot of money, but it spends all of it on relatives, friends, dependents, and so on. And what is he going to store for his children? So with that anxiety, she was careful not to ask her husband, but sent Naren. Naren, you go and ask father. So one day Naren went to father. He asked him, what is he going to leave for him? The father looked at him curiously and then instructed him to go and stand in front of the mirror in their hall. First he saw his reflection, nothing important. But as he started intently looking at the reflection, first he became aware to the strong athletic body which his father was very careful for him to develop through exercises, gymnastics. Then he continued his gaze. He realized, yes, father has given me a very beautiful, cultured mind. He has developed it with such care. Then deeper still, he realized, yes, father has helped him to achieve the sharpness of his intellect. He has trained him meticulously, asking him to read books, take part in discussions, contemplation, meeting great people of his time. Suddenly, Naren was thrilled at his revelations, and this experience he cherished forever. So, the key to self-development lies within us. That is the point which we have to remember in this particular chapter. Sri Krishna, like Naren's father, through all the 4 or 5 chapters we have finished, he was helping us to expand our mind, sharpen our intellect, so that our mirror images will not deter us from this call of spirit within. It will help us only in the journey to enlightenment. Here is a great lesson for all of us. So we may think, why Krishna gave us all these 4 or 5 discourses and then ask us to take this jump of self and self practice. So that is why many people turned away, but Krishna has ignited in us who were watching the Krishna Arjuna Samvada. We have ourselves lighted in our hearts a small lamp. And because of that, when many people turn away from entering the portals of Bhagavad Gita, we have decided to stick on. So we have to remain here. And this self-transformation can take place only in an Amrit Parivar. That is where Amrit Parivar comes into our focus. Father and mother are the directors who should take care to train and discipline their children to achieve Amritatva and expand their minds, then to find themselves reflected in the universe, as emphasized in the previous talk by Sri Krishna, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. I hope you remember that word. It should be kept as a gem of our contemplation, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. To what extent, Smita was reminding you, Abhinna Chakshusha, with no otherness in our mind, how we can interact, let us say, with people, with nature, with everything in this universe. What a wonderful achievement it will be. So here Krishna reminds of that. The world around is a great mirror. You know, Dakshinamurti Stotra starts Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagar. The experiences we have, the interactions we have, they are all helping us to chisel our personality. What has gone wrong? Where am I right? How I should improve? Here we can remember the story of Dattatreya. Dattatreya found in everything around some teacher who was adding to his knowledge of practical spirituality. So everybody, 24 gurus, that is how it is said, you know, in the great Bhagavad. So we stand here, we are ready now to take the lessons of Sri Krishna, but still in our mind there is a small doubt why all this he should have discussed with us earlier, karma, so much of karma, sannyasa, tyaga, everything he has been telling us. Where was the need for that? So we must remember that these were all necessary These ingredients of character formation or steps to realization are absolutely necessary for us to move onward and forward. If we had not gone through that, but read this stanza, Uddhare Atmanatmanam, probably we should have taken a stool or a chair and standing upon it, we must have told ourselves, yes, Uddhare Atmanatmanam. Now that because we have gone through this, we know a training of our mind is very, very necessary. Training of our body, mind, and intellect is necessary for real personality development. And now we are ready. Yes, what Krishna did was good. All the 5 chapters he has given us enough directions, and we can now start our journey onward and forward. So when Krishna feels we are ready, or rather when we say we, in front of him, our representative is there, Arjuna is ready. Krishna says, okay, Arjuna, now we will start. And for the first time, we find in Bhagavad Gita, there is a workshop on self-development. He's taking us to a laboratory of self-development. So from stanza 10 of this particular chapter, we get enough directions. There's no time for us to go through all this. So he said where to sit, how to hold your body, how to breathe. All this he teaches us. And he says what food to eat, what food not to eat, what should be your play, what should be your hours of sleep. We will be surprised at all those details which we should be careful about before we take the next step. So this is Tvam. Now we have to enter from 7th chapter, we are entering into the Tat. So before we take our next step, earlier I told you we have to get rid of our luggage of egoism, luggage of attachment and all that. Now from here onwards, what is important is how much self-effort you are going to put. Are you going to lead a disciplined life? Are you going to get up early? Take yoga, take pranayama. You are going to take exercises regularly without any break. All these have been taught by Sri Krishna. So I call it as the workshop of the Bhagavad Gita. The workshop where this self-development has been arranged. Because if there is a lack of discipline, as Krishna says in the Sada, our own mind will become our enemy. It cannot help us. So we have to be very, very careful in that. So the 6th chapter upholds the model for self-transformation. Directions are given, as I said, very beautiful stanzas, Yukta hara viharasya, yukta swapnavabodhasya. All that we hear so many times, how you have to be very, very careful, very moderate in your food, habits, everything. So a very, very, just like a teacher will take care of his students' development, in the same way, Krishna gives us, but never forgetting to remind us off and on, Sarvam Brahmamayam. All this we have to do because finally we have to realize that the whole universe is nothing but Brahma. Sri Krishna, as he gives this, we have to be, we must have something in our mind to keep as an example of this self-development. Our Upanishads, etc., they are very, very careful to give us beautiful upamas or similes by which we can contemplate on this advices. So some such beautiful simile in this context which we can remember, many of us who must who have read the Katha Upanishad must be remembering that wonderful illustration which Yama puts before Nachiketa. And I'm sure all of you know the story of Nachiketa, how Nachiketa, the 7-year-old boy, goes to the father. He felt the father was going not in the right way in distributing the cows. So he asked him, to whom are you going to give me? 2-3 times he asked. Father, in a sort of angry mood, told him, to Yama, I'm going to give you. So he goes to Yama and stood there 3 days without sitting down, taking any food or anything like that. Yama was not there. He was not in town. So when Yama comes, people tell him, look, the Tejasvi boy is standing, waiting for you. Please go and appease him, because we should not allow a guest to remain like that. You know, here is a very beautiful lesson for us. If you keep a guest unsatisfied, I believe our Nirmalanandagiri Swami used to tell us, he has the capacity to absorb your goodness from you. The good credit which is there in your fixed deposit in your bank of Chitragupta, he has the capacity to withdraw that. Just as now we are having, without our knowledge, the cyber thieves can take away our deposits. In the same way, an Aditi who is not properly taken care of has the capacity to absorb all our good karma bhalas. So we have to be very, very careful. So immediately Yama came rushing, offering him Arghyapadya, etc., and said, what can I do for you? Because you are standing here, let me start on my own. I would like to give you a minimum of 3 boons. That is the minimum I can give you. You are a young child. What would you like to have, young son? He said, very good. When I go back to earth from this Mrityu-loka, no, normally what will happen? People who return from the Mrityu-loka, we call them Preta, Pishacha and all that, and we get very much worried about it, So he says, when I go back to my father should not get upset. He should receive me with all the affection and understanding, as though nothing has happened. Tathastu. Then what more you want? The people on the earth, they want to achieve so many things in Swarga level. So teach me some very good yajna by which people can do it and raise themselves for heavenly life. Okay, that also I grant. I will give you a bonus also. What is that bonus? This particular yajna will be named after you. Nachiketa yajna. Okay. Now what more do you want? Ask for the 3rd boon. Then comes the best in Nachiketa, and for the sake of all of us Hindus who are concerned about the immortality, the amaratva, the amritatva, Yama comes out with his very grand talk on Upanishad. But before this, he tries again to tempt the little child. Nachiketa, you are asking for the impossible. This great knowledge, it cannot be so easily given. No, I want it. I will give you a lot of dolls to play with, lot of chariots, women, anything you want, you say, I will give you. No, I don't want anything. And this story is important for us in another way, because this is Shraddha with which Nachiketa insisted on extracting from Yama this knowledge. Swamiji had been always reminding us, Nachiketa's Shraddha, Shraddha of Nachiketas. And that is what we Hindus have loved. If somebody says, why do you want to know about immortality? Why do you want to know about Amrita Parivar? I will give you an Amrita-like house or a deposit, which will be like Amrita with you. Yes, that is enough for us. We are not bothered about Amrita Parivar, isn't it? But here, this boy insisted, nothing doing. Very beautiful slogan is there. He says, all these playthings and all, oh Yama, you keep for yourself. I don't want all this. I want to know the Amritatva. Like the other day we discussed, Maitreyi said, I don't want all this material wealth. Teach me that Amara knowledge. So in the same way, he says, Yama is very happy. And then he starts with our great Upanishad. It is in that great Upanishad that we first see Kaschidhiraha pratyagatmanamaikshat avritta chakshu amrudattvamichan. Then about Shreyas, about prayers, it talks about all these things. Then finally, when it comes to this particular area of self-discipline and self-development, Yama uses a magnificent model, a very beautiful simile. He says, Atmanam Ridhinam Vidhi. Consider yourself as the owner of a chariot. And he describes the chariot. The owner is sitting in the chariot. In front of him is the Sarathi. In the hands of the Sarathi are the reins. Then there are 5 horses in front. And the chariot itself is built in a very proper way. And under the directions of the owner, the Sarathi takes the chariot to its destination. That is what it is meant for. But Yama now says, now just imagine this chariot, very old. It has not been sent for servicing for ever long. The whole thing is rattling. And the horses are not at all healthy. And the reins are about to break, very old. And the Sarathi is not in best frame of his mind. Such a chariot, if you go in that, what will happen? Dushtashva ivasarathehe. Just like bad horses will take a chariot to its destruction, in the same way, Nachiketa, this human body of ours, if not properly taken care of through yoga and exercises and things like that, by all the processes which Krishna has illustrated in the chapter, that useless body, full of diseases, not capable of undertaking any strain. And imagine the rain, our mind is the rain. It is a very old piece of wire. Anytime it may break. And the horses are not in healthy condition. And this thing itself, chariot itself, is in very bad condition. What will happen? It will take you to your destruction. On the contrary, your chariot, your body is well taken care of. The Sarathi is just like Sri Krishna's Daruga or Indra's Madali or Arjuna's Parthasarathi, with beautiful 5 horses of our Indriyas, each vying with each other in strength and vitality. And the reins are in very good hands like that of a Parthasarathi. Then what will happen? It will take you to your destination, that whatever we want in life. Sadashva iva saradhehi, like good horses drawing a good chariot to its proper goal. In the same way, our life can go to its destination. This is a very beautiful simile which we should learn to meditate upon, because if you deeply think about it, you will find the whole Bhagavad Gita is a picture woven around that simile. Sri Krishna is there, Arjuna is there, white horses are there, beautiful golden chariot is there, and there is a battleground of dharma versus adharma. So this is a very beautiful simile for meditation. So this self-effort is the point which Sri Krishna stresses in this particular chapter. Arjuna is a little worried. No, Krishna, I cannot do it. It is very difficult to control the mind, to control the intellect. It is all very difficult, Krishna. Then Krishna tells him, yes, I know it is very difficult. But if you want a good life, you must learn discipline. Your self-effort is very important. Your goal, destination should be kept in mind. So you can't escape all that. In saying this, Krishna gives him a very beautiful patting. What is that? See, all of us, for our whole life, we can carry this. We can call it as a Aadhaar card, or probably we can call it as a credit card, which we can carry all our life. Sri Krishna, towards the end of the chapter, to console Arjuna, to console all of us, he comes out with a very wonderful credit card or Aadhaar card, or what we can say, which is valid not only in this one birth. When Krishna gives a credit card, it is valid throughout the birth, provided we act according to his direction. What is that credit card? Nahi kalyana krit kaschil durgadim tata gachadi. Oh, my dear friend, the very fact that you have started moving in this direction, your upward evolutionary journey, you have decided to move forward, your spiritual evolution, you have started. He is a Kalyanakrit. You are on the right path. He will bring auspiciousness. Wherever such a person is there, he will bring auspiciousness around to the family, to the society. And such a person, I will never leave him, Arjuna. Nahi kalyanakrit kaschil durgadim tadagachadi partha naiveha namutra vinashastasya vidyate. There is no destruction for that person. He will never be troubled in life, because Kalyana is Sarva Mangala. That word Kalyana is the Mangala. We have said, Mangala for whom? Not for individual, not for the family. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. Our Bharat's great contribution to world thought is, we always pray for everybody. We start our programs with a prayer, universal prayer. We end it with universal prayer. So, Kalyanakrit kasya durgadim tata gachadi. So he pats him and says, don't you worry, my child, you start up. And Arjuna, instead of the other people who turned back, he decides to stand there, asking more and more questions, extracting more and more knowledge, and deciding, transforming himself into a Kalyanakrit. The aura and protective power of this Kalyanakrit card, let us remember to carry all our life. So again and again, I repeat, let us go on doing little or big good things which will bring goodness all around. Maitriya, danena, manena, maitriya, abhinna chakshusha. So in this discourse, Sri Krishna clears. What is it clearing? Whether you call it tapas or yoga or anything, what matters is how much is your power of renunciation. Renunciation of not your wealth, not your habits or anything like that. Renunciation of the I, my, mine. The more and more you are able to remove all this, then you become a Kalyanakrit and Durgadim Tata Nakichari. He will never be troubled in life. So, Tyaga and Karma are very, very important. And when they join together, one becomes a yogi, one can become a sannyasi, it is up to you. If you think becoming a yogi, you can serve the humanity, let it be like that. If you think becoming a sannyasi, you can serve the world, humanity, let it be like that. So these words are emphasizing your way of probably working on yourself and on the society. But what is important is tyaga, tyaga, tyaga. No wonder Sri Ramakrishna says about Bhagavad Gita, go on, repeat the word Gita, Gita, Gita. Finally, you end up in saying tyagi. So Vivekananda Swami also says, renunciation and service are the twin ideals of our country. Let us intensify them in all channels, and our country will be great. Remember, today, our society in such a bad condition, we don't teach our children the quality of tyaga. Husband-wife relationships are in trouble because tyaga buddhi is not the I important, you important. Bringing up the children, we don't impart into them tyaga by which they can understand the misery of the world and try to help them. So it is very, very important to develop an Amrit Parivar. This tyaga is the key quality we should inculcate in children from childhood onwards. Sri Krishna ends up this chapter calling upon Arjuna. Arjuna, now we have understood the importance of tyaga. Tapassibhyo dhigo yogi, jnanibhyo pitadodhikam, karmibhyascha yogi, tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. All of us should become yogis, either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more, or all of them, and be free. That is Vivekananda's call to us. Let us remember at this time, Swamiji's call, Sri Krishna used the word Tasmad Yogi Bhavarjana. Swamiji uses a more modern approach. He says, be a man with capital M. Be a man with capital M. Man, all selfish interests, but he expands into man when he has tyaga in him. Tyaga will help him to expand from being a very small individual to the great stature of a Vivekananda or a Sri Krishna. So this 6th chapter exhorts us. Two things we have to remember, very, very important in our mind. I remember telling you, we have to pick up some pearls of wisdom from every chapter and keep them together. At the end of our 18th chapter, we will put them all together into a Bhagavad Gita Japamala. In that Japamala, here, two important things which we have got, pearls we have got. One, Nahi Kalyanakrit Kaschid Durgadim Tata Gachadi. Another one is Tasmad yogi bhavarjana. Both are worthy of contemplation. Whenever we get a chance to do good to others, remembering the words, yes, Bhagavan, I remember to be a Kalyanakrit, then I know you are always with me. Then, when we have to serve the society, selflessly, do our work in a masterly way, let us remember Tasmad yogi bhavarjana. I cannot do work in a sluggish, sloppy way because Krishna tells me to become a yogi in our work. So such two beautiful expressions, Kalyanakrit and yogi. Kalyanakrit definitely will become a yogi, and yogi will always be a Kalyanakrit. So with this beautiful thought, we will conclude this first section of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna gives us a lot of knowledge regarding Tat. In the next Tvam, our individuals, as individuals where we stand, what all we have to acquire, what is the sort of knowledge, type of work, type of renunciation, all those have been taught very, very beautifully. And as I said, after we listen to this lecture, we must make it a point to read these stanzas once again and absorb the meaning. Maybe for some of you, listening to English may be not so very convenient. For some, it will be listening in our own mother tongue, it will be more understandable. So we all have Gita in a number of translations, so we can read them and chew within our mind. Nahi kalyanakrit kaschil durgadim tadagachati tasmad yogi bhavarjana. So with these two beautiful pearls of wisdom, offering it to our Swamiji's feet and Sri Krishna's feet, I conclude this 6th chapter, 7th discourse of this 6th chapter, isn't it? So from next Wednesday, we'll go to the more important Tvam. Tvam over Tat. We shift to the emphasis is shifting to Tat. Tat Tvamasi. So Tat will be the main topic of discussion. That is important because every Parivar is revolving around one truth, When the whole universe is revolving around that one truth of Parabrahma, we can't avoid knowing about it something or other. So from next week, we will take up that discussion. Thank you so much for listening and trying to absorb Sri Krishna's words.
धन्यवाद